Hey, everybody. Jordan Adler here with my friend Jim Klauck. Listen, welcome to the Beach Money podcast, where we feature guests that have created beach money or they have a support system that helps entrepreneurs create beach money, which is all around lifestyle. Thanks for the podcast. Thanks for listening to this podcast. And my host for the weekly or for the Beach Money podcast is Jim. And we just thought it would be a great idea if we interviewed Jim on the Beach Money podcast because he's created a beach money lifestyle and he's an expert at it. And so I thought it would be really a great idea. We actually came together. He proposed it to me and I liked the idea. And so I said, yeah, we need to do that. So since 2003, Jim's been assisting home service professionals building their businesses through just direct response radio. He's actually known as the radio pitchman. Is that right, Jim?
Oh, yeah, the radio pitchman.
Radio pitchman. And he has a formula to help businesses craft copy which makes the phone ring for clients. And that's his main objective. And I also know that if I were to ask Jim how he's doing, he would probably say,
living the dream.
Living the dream. That's what Jim says. So, yeah. And we are going to be on a cruise together next month for the first time. And we'll be traveling through the Caribbean and learning more about podcasting and networking with people that are in the podcasting arena. So let's start there, Jim. I want to start with beach money. Let's start there. This is the Beach Money podcast. So from your perspective, what does beach money mean to you? What does your beach money life look like? And what does it mean to you?
My beach money life is a life where I'm in control. So many people who have jobs really aren't in control. They work for a corporation. They have a boss and they just can't take off whatever time they want. They just can't go on a cruise or go skiing or at 2 p.m. go for a bike ride. And for me, I'm big into the F word, freedom. And I find it interesting. Since I left the corporate world in 2003, Jordan, I've really noticed how much I've enjoyed living outside of prison. And what I mean by that is I've never been incarcerated officially, but I've worked for large companies, and you've worked in the corporate world yourself, and you understand what it's like when you have a job. You basically are owned by that company for so many hours a week, so many hours a month, so many years. And you often will get 1 or 2 days off a week. You have to put in 8, 10, 12 hours a day, and they'll give you 2 weeks off a year. My gosh, yeah. That to me is prison. So I realized that I was a misfit. I didn't fit well into the corporate world because I didn't like how it was. It was just like, being in the military, boom, 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 boom. And I'm more of a free thinker, and I like to live my life. I don't want someone else to tell me how to live my life.
And go ahead.
And we're raised in this country to go to school, which is great. We're educated. And then we're kind of told to go get a job for life. And this is old fashioned, but we still hear this today. And at 65, you can retire and then finally go on that cruise to Alaska with the missus. I want to wait to 65 to start living my dream? No. So I've been doing this since I was 36. So let me tell you a quick story about how this all started. I don't know if I've told you this story. So at 36, I was on my 4th job and things were going well. And I worked for good companies at pretty good levels. And at the time, I decided to leave the corporate world. I was 36 years old and I was the vice president of sales for a company. And I was living the dream for a young guy. I had hair. You know what it's like to have hair, right? I had hair, young wife, and we had a 2-year-old, and my wife was pregnant with our daughter. So my son, Jimmy, was 2 years old. Daughter, Ashley, we didn't know what her name was yet. We didn't even know it was going to be a daughter. She was still in the oven with my wife. So I come home one day and I tell my wife I would like to quit my perfectly good 6-figure income job to do something on my own. Now, understand, some people might say that's suicide to tell a pregnant woman that type of thing. Okay. And so she said, absolutely. And I put a system together, this plan, these goals that had to be accomplished before I could live that dream. We had to sell the house. I had to get out of the job. We had to move to a different state. And it's really the best thing I've ever done. Now, my wife had worked for herself before, and she said, Jim, do you understand what it's like to start your own thing, whether you're a solopreneur or you're a small business owner? And I've been pretty much everything. I've been self-employed. I've owned a business. I've had employees, and I've worked as a W-2 worker. And I said, I have no idea what I'm getting into, but I have this calling. Now, what's interesting, though, is I didn't have a specific calling. It wasn't like, oh, I need to, be a preacher or something like that. Okay. It was, I'm in the wrong place. I need to do something different so I can be healthier, meaning mentally healthier. And so we were really living the American dream. Young couple kids, well, one and one on the way, 6-bedroom house, 1.5 acre cul-de-sac lot, swimming pool, and a tennis court, and a BMW in the driveway. No joke. It was that thing that we all want to aspire to when we're young. And I got it. I had it, everything. And I threw it out the window. And it took 5 years to recover financially from that income loss. I've never looked back, and I have more freedom. And if I don't want to do something, I won't do it. So I pick and choose my clients. When I worked for a company, I was given a list of customers. And understand, I worked for companies that were large, and we serviced accounts like CVS Pharmacy, Walmart, Walgreens. So you didn't really have to get new business, but you had to service these large customers. So they told you what to do. And they treated me well, and I had great benefits. It was kind of a cushy job, but I had no passion for it.
You were suffering at some point. You were suffering a little bit, and I think that out in the world, there's a lot of people that were at your level, 36 years old, built a successful business, BMW, and living the good life, right? But on the inside, they're suffering because they don't have control over their life. So that's really what you're saying.
Sure, it's like someone saying, I'm married to a supermodel, and they're like, yeah, she's hot, but I don't love her. So what? Right. She's hot. So I had the BMW and the tennis court and the pool and everything, but I don't care how hot that was. I didn't feel hot. And so my wife is very supportive. And I will tell anyone that if you are married, it's important to have a partner that is on your side. And you probably know that, Jordan, because you work with a lot of people and a lot of teams, right? A lot of married couples. And you probably see that, don't you?
I do. I absolutely do. In fact, what's really funny is I actually broke out as an entrepreneur at the age of 36 as well. That's what my first year as a full-time entrepreneur, where I didn't have a job after 17 years, was 36 years old. And I'm 65 today. You mentioned 65. And I'm sure glad I didn't wait till I was 65 to live my dream, because for the past 20 years now, I have been living my dream, just like you've described. And you know what? Did you notice? I don't know if you noticed this in the early days, but when you first go out on your own and you're starting to build something, did you notice that it was kind of hard to find people that, like, if you wanted to go do something in the middle of the week when everybody else is working, it was hard to find people that wanted to do it with you, at least in the early days, until you started hanging out with entrepreneurs and getting around people that have financial freedom.
I totally agree. And so I'll tell you one thing that was really nice. I got to be on the retired people's schedule. So I could go grocery shopping anytime I wanted, get my hair cut whenever I wanted. I could do anything pretty much because I was controlling things. That didn't last for long because I ended up starting a business and I had to be there a lot. And so I wasn't living my dream then. And so I started my business in 2005. And when I say business, I mean hiring, training, firing, building the business. When you have a business versus being a solopreneur, you have a lot more responsibility. 8 to 9 businesses out of 10 will fail. Generally, when people are self-employed, they don't go out of business. They may change course, but like, when's the last time you heard a realtor say, I went out of business? They don't say they went out of business. No. Or, so it's kind of hard because there's not a lot to lose when you do your own thing. And so I went from being an employee to an employer to then hiring companies and individuals who are very good at what they do to work for me instead of employees. So I have a lot of great people and companies who support my business today, kind of like what you do. You have a great team behind you, but they don't work directly for you as employees, right? But they help get those cards out. And so it's enabled me to then have more freedom.
Yeah, so this is a really important lesson in building a business that creates freedom. So there's a lot of businesses that the more successful you become, the less free you become, right? And that's what Jim was referring to when he was talking about, starting a traditional business and hiring employees, because as you grow, you've got more and more responsibility taking care of those employees. But what if you built a business around having independent people that are part of your team? They're their own business and they just support you. And in doing that, you can actually free up time. And the more people you have like that, the freer you become. And at some point, you could take months off and still get paid and not have to work.
Yeah. And I'll tell you something else. There's a difference between owning your labor force or your employees and farming it out. Now, the difference is the W-2 to 1099. A big difference, though, is when you are responsible for the 40-hour work week of that individual, you actually have to do everything for them legally, too. There's all these boxes that have to be checked off. And if not, the state will come after you, maybe the Fed, too. You have to treat them well. So it's like being a parent to children. And I don't mean to make it sound like I'm belittling the employee, but the employer is responsible. And they have to play by certain rules. On the other hand, if you're a solopreneur or you're self-employed and you don't have any employees, you can farm out the business to experts in their field. And so what you're doing is you're finding the best people. And instead of being responsible for a 40-hour work week, you may only need them 5 hours a month. So you can actually order the services on demand, and it's very efficient. Also, that is not an employee, so they treat you different. You are now a client to them. That's a big difference.
Yeah, and in today's world, more than ever before, because of technology, it makes it easier and easier to do that. You know what I just noticed, Jim? If I'm right here, it looks like I have a green bow in my hair.
Oh yeah.
So
I see that.
I need to slide over a little bit. That's, by the way, that's Willy Wonka's neck thing. It's on his neck. Yeah. So you, from all these interviews that you've done with your service pros, what are 3 or 4 lessons that you've learned about becoming successful in business from maybe the most successful ones? What do they have in common?
Are you talking about small business owners in general, or specifically home service providers where I do a lot of work for?
I would say small businesses in general, because you've got experience with both.
So the most successful small business owners really know how to leverage things. So it's, the biggest mistake people make, and I was talking to Tommy Mello from A1 Garage Door Service yesterday, on a podcast, and he farms everything out, from having someone come to his home to get his hair cut. He has a personal chef. He doesn't do his laundry. He may even have someone put his jeans on in the morning. I don't know. That would be weird, but who knows? And so for him, time is important, and he leverages that. And also in business, leveraging expertise is important. And so using the right kind of tools, whether it's labor, AI, all kinds of different tools we use. And so I learned a long time ago, and the most successful people in business do this, is they use leverage. We're only one person. So, leverage is when you can use tools to move that rock a little easier, right? So we use a leverage to do that. And so in business, it's important to do what you do best, hire people who are better than you. And Tommy Mello, for instance, made that clear yesterday in the podcast. And of course, I've agreed with that for years. The best managers in the world hire people who are better than they are in these different disciplines. And you look like a hero. You don't have to be that smart.
Yeah. Get a good team around you. You know,
Mhm.
like if your car breaks, most people, what they do, if they've got a newer car, what they do, they have to take it to the shop. Those people have experience with working on the car, right? So you pay them and they fix your car. And that's just normal. That's just what most people do. Now, there's always a few that will fix their own car, but they're not really good. They don't have the equipment to fix the newer cars with the computers and all that. So you don't have a choice to take the car in. And then there's all these things we do around our house, around our life that we don't enjoy doing. And start to consider, like, you know, what could you find somebody that loves to do it, that's good at it because they do it all the time. It's going to free you up so you can do other things and grow in your business. So, one of the biggest things, like for me, Jim, that I did early on was, and it was very difficult because you got to turn your bank accounts over and all your financial stuff, is get a bookkeeper,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
that does your books. And if that's something that you don't enjoy, if it's a burden to you and you worry about it, let somebody that's good at it, that you trust, do it, and pay them, and it will free you up like nothing that you can even imagine. So do you think that you can predict whether someone's going to make it in business or not?
Absolutely. It's
So
only
let's talk.
because I'm an old man, right? I've been around. So as we get older, Jordan, we see things a lot easier, don't we? We can predict what's going to happen. And so I've met a lot of overconfident people saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and this is how I'm doing it. And I say, hey, it's great you're going to do all that, but I would definitely surround yourself with people who can help you. So definitely get a great CPA, not just a bookkeeper, a CPA who can help you with the taxes and all of that. You have to have someone who understands it. And so you need all of these professionals around you. And so many young people are overconfident and they go in and they're like, I can do everything. I can do sales. I can do marketing. I can build the product. I can distribute the product. And even if you could, even if you at 26 years old, okay, are that good, and you're not because you don't have the experience, you don't have the man hours.
The bandwidth, right?
Exactly. There's not enough bandwidth. And so now I will say this. If you want a successful business that you can then sell one day to someone else, you have to build a team and you have to kind of own that team so you can sell it as a package. If you want to be a solopreneur, if you want to be self-employed and be really good at what you do, you don't necessarily have to build that team. There are many people who make millions of dollars that don't have a company. Baseball players come to mind. NFL football players come to mind. Professional tennis players. Think about it. Tom Brady, he does have a business, but he didn't have to have a business. He worked basically as a solopreneur on the field. He had a contract. Was he technically employed? I don't know, but he was pretty much independent, and these people come and go from team to team. Highly paid, highly. Like, these guys make a lot of money. And so I found that it's just not business owners that can make a lot of money. If you're really good at something and you offer a great service, you could make hundreds of thousands or maybe millions of dollars a year without your own employees. And you know something
True.
about that, Jordan. I mean, you're in that
True.
role.
That's true. And at the same time, how many professional athletes and entertainers end up being broke by the time
Oh,
they're in their 40s because they didn't hire the right team?
yes.
They got maybe they had people around them that weren't really on their side. They were really more about their own personal self-interest. And I mean, how many actors and entertainers have gone broke because their team has spent all their money or made bad investments, all that kind of stuff. So it's important to make sure that you've got a team of people that you can trust and that are really on your side and are working in your best interest.
Yeah, the
And that's
biggest mistake some of these people make, Jordan, and it happened to Billy Joel, and it happens to a lot of people who are artists, entertainers, athletes, is they're not business people. They're literally artists. They're very good at what they do. They throw the football well, they can sing well, they can dance well, whatever it is. And so they're thrown all this money because they become very popular very quickly. But that doesn't mean they're good with money. And some people, especially in athletics, don't come from families
right.
that manage money. They came from poor families, maybe, or lower income families. And so they're like, all of a sudden I'm rich, I'm going to go buy this stuff. And they're not in control. So if someone who's already a millionaire wins $30 million in the lottery, they are going to protect that money and manage it better than someone who's never made more than $40,000 a year.
Somebody that's making 40,000 a year, they have a $40,000 a year blueprint.
Yes, that's their mentality. You're right.
Yeah. It's kind of the E Myth, Michael Gerber.
Yeah.
Where, somebody that gets really, they get really good at what their trade is or their skill, but they don't, like you say, they don't have the skills to run a business.
Yep.
And it ends up getting in trouble.
Yep. Hey, can I talk a little bit about my book? I want to talk a little bit about.
You know what? I was going to ask you. I actually was going to ask you about your book.
Yeah. So I've got a very small book, and people are like, "Hey, that's a small book." This book can be read within 30 minutes, and I actually have a free Audible version online. It's called the Radio Pitchman's Podcast Playbook. And so how I got to host Jordan Adler's podcast, Beach Money, is because I have a client, Howard Partridge, and I do his as well. And so I told Jordan, because we're all friends, and he said, well, if Howard has one, I want one. So so pretty much, I mean, you're like, that's a good idea.
I'm in.
And so, so now I produce this one for you as well. But what I really do, though, for most of my clients, and most of my clients are small business owners that want to get exposure. And they're trying to keep up in a fast-paced world where everyone's out there in digital land. All this electronic media, there's videos out there, there's podcasts, and people are like, what am I to do? Like, am I supposed to be walking around in my bathroom with my iPhone? And some people do that. And so I've come up with this system where I produce 3 to 5 minute long video podcasts for my clients, and we put them on Audible and Spotify and Amazon and all the big players. And we build these embeddable podcast players that can go on the website of my client's website, like on their homepage. So when someone goes to learn more about the company, they see me and the owner of the company talking about their business, and we answer frequently asked questions. Jordan, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this book called They Ask You Answer. This was written. Okay, this is written by Marcus Sheridan, and in 2009, his swimming pool company in Richmond, Virginia, almost went out of business because of the banking crisis. Many people who had ordered a pool had canceled their pools because they were worried they wouldn't have money to finish them. He was scrambling as the business owner and started playing around with blogs and videos, and he created this system called They Ask You Answer. The They Ask is frequently asked questions a homeowner might ask about swimming pools, and then he would answer them. And it's a very effective system. So we've adopted that system into what we do at my company called Check-A-Pro, and we interview that business owner, and we go through these questions. And so every week we answer a new question, and we build up this library of videos. And we also put backlinks on them, and they go back to the home site of that business owner. So picture getting a backlink from Amazon and from Apple Podcasts and iHeartRadio. So there's an SEO play, and there's also basically the education to the consumer. Because what happens today, and we all know this, is that we as consumers will go onto websites, go onto social media, go anywhere we can to learn more about the product or the service before we ever engage. We couldn't do that years ago. But today there's so much information. So you won't hear from anyone until they're satisfied, they're ready to engage with you. How are they going to engage with you if they don't know you? So we know that people buy from people they know, like, and trust. And this is really important for the smaller business. It's different. I mean, if you're Microsoft, you're in a different league. People know who you are. They either trust you or they don't. But if you're a smaller player, let's say you're a realtor with a team and you do pretty well, or you're in the insurance business. I have a lot of home service providers like contractors, roofers, and HVAC, electrical, plumbing. And think about it. If you need a new air conditioning system and it costs $25,000 or $30,000, don't you want to do a little research, Jordan, on that company before you buy?
Yeah. It's good stuff, Jim. I'm learning a lot. In fact, I'm coming up with ideas just from some of the stuff you're telling me, and we've known each other for a while. So, yeah, and it's funny. I can tell you're a professional because all the things I'm going to ask you, you answer them before I even ask. So, the question I have for you is, if somebody wants to get that little book that you had there, are we going to have that in the show notes?
It'll be in the show notes, but I'm also going to give out my email address, which is a great way to reach me. And then I'll also give out some Facebook information. I do a lot on Facebook Messenger, which many people do today as well. The email address is Jim, Jim, at theradiopitchman.com. Jim at theradiopitchman.com. As a matter of fact, that information is on the screen right now. You'll see it near my logo. And so that information's there. Also, Jim Klauck, Klauck. Follow me on Facebook, and you can message me, and I will send you a copy in the mail, signed, and I'll also send you a link to the Audible version so you can listen to it before you get the book. And I'm telling you, this is simple stuff. And if you want to do things yourself, you can. But I will say something, and I mentioned this in the book. I have a whole chapter on this. And what that is you can do all of this yourself, but be careful. It's like what they say with the attorney who defends himself in court. It's probably best that you hire someone else to defend you. A dentist probably doesn't drill their own teeth. My point is when you're on camera and you're talking about how great you are, people don't like that as much as a third party saying how great you are. And that's my job. My job is to put you on a pedestal, make you look good, and I endorse you. And that's way better than you going, aren't I great? Hire me. And people do it all day long, and I cringe. And the best thing to do if you're going to do anything like that is just use that selfie video as an educational tool. But if you really want credibility and you really want to stand out from your competition, have someone else interview you. So I've got Jordan Adler, who is at the top of the list in his industry, and he's interviewing me. That's credibility.
Well, this has been fantastic, Jim. This has been a great interview. Lots to unpack here. And I want to thank you for being my host for the Beach Money podcast. You've done a fantastic job. We've interviewed, I don't know, somewhere in the range of 10 guests so far, and you've been fantastic in drawing out great information and great training from them. So make sure you dig up those podcasts and watch those. And then also, looking forward to hanging out on the cruise with you. And thank you for being my guest today.
I am well. Thank you so much. I appreciate all that you offer. Thank you for letting me host your podcast. It's a great opportunity for me to meet all kinds of cool people that Jordan Adler knows. I am looking forward to the cruise. Just before the cruise, I'm going to be at a conference for 3 days in Orlando. Tommy Mello's putting on an event. It's going to be great. And then I'm going to be ready to get on that ship and have a margarita and hang out with great people. And these look like small business owners and solopreneurs. A lot of them, I think, are self-employed small businesses, and it's going to be fun. I'm probably going to pass a lot of little books out and hopefully help a lot of people, and hopefully I learn a lot. I'm going to come away from that podcaster's cruise with something big. I don't know what it is, but I have a saying, Jordan, every meeting is a good meeting.
Yeah. Special thanks to Howard Partridge as well. I want to make sure and say that, because Howard's been a mentor to me and to you, I know, and has been such a great example of entrepreneurship. So, but we'll see you on the cruise next month. And thanks for jumping on today. It's been
Jordan,
great.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.